Hello, and welcome to the last episode of This Month on the Railroad for 2021. Let's begin. On the 1st of December, VIARail officially unveiled their new Siemens train set. This train is the first of 32 trains for the VIARail corridor route between Quebec City and Windsor. These trains consist of one Siemens SC42 pulling 5 cars, one of which is a streamlined cab car. Trains are set to debut in early 2022, right around the same time as Amtrak's new ALC-42s. On the 2nd, pictures of a new NJ Transit Armed Forces unit were leaked at the Kearny, New Jersey shops. This new special interest unit, an ALP-45 dual mode, features a blue paint scheme that pays tribute to our armed forces, but I must say the American flag on the side that doesn't have 50 stars doesn't look great, but the blue definitely looks cool on an ALP-45. This locomotive, number 4502, later debuted in service on the 11th, pulling a train to MetLife Stadium for the Army vs. Navy football game in Rutherford. After the Army-Navy game, 4502 was entered into regular service out of Hoboken. Speaking of the military, on the same day the Army Corps of Engineers gave Amtrak a permit to begin construction on the new Hudson River Tunnel connecting New Jersey to New York's Penn Station. This permit grants Amtrak permission to begin construction on the new river tunnel as early as the summer of 2023. On the 3rd, the MBTA began running test trains on their new Green Line extension to Union Square. This new line connecting the Green Line to Somerville will enter service in March of 2022, running parallel to the commuter rail's Fitchburg line, and then in May, or sometime around then, the MBTA will open the Medford branch, which will run parallel to the Lowell line. The next day, a passenger was spotted with a whole Christmas tree on the platform on the Long Island Railroad. I guess that's one way to do it. On the 6th, the Altamont Corridor Express commuter rail in California received environmental approval to expand their line to Merced. The current line runs from San Jose to Stockton, and in 2023, ACE will expand service with a new line from Sacramento to Ceres, which will connect to the existing one in Stockton. Now in 2025, the new line will continue south from Ceres to Merced, where it will eventually connect with California high-speed rail if that ever happens. On the same day, Union Pacific announced that their goal is to have net zero emissions by 2050 by using renewable biodiesel and battery-powered yard switchers. Now, UP is committing to being more environmentally friendly, and although it's ambitious, I think that they might actually be able to pull this off simply because 2050 is still 30 years from now, which obviously is a while away. On the 8th, an image surfaced of an Amtrak HHP-8 at Washington Union Station with its pantographs removed. Amtrak converted a few former HHP-8 electrics into cab cars for some of their routes up north. In order to do this, many electric components were deactivated inside, and also pantographs were removed. As of when this is being uploaded, they haven't entered service anywhere quite yet. On the 9th, Amtrak ACS-64 number 662 was spotted in an Amtrak Phase 3 wrap which was sponsored by Dovetail Games' Train Sim World 2. This wrap pays homage to the old Phase 3 paint formerly seen on the AEM-7s, which the ACS-64s replaced a few years ago, but it also features an ad for TSW2 on its side. Additionally, Amtrak told news sources that the wrap will stay on until at least May 1st. Anyways, I'll be uploading a 10-minute long video about 662 on the 13th, so stay tuned for that. On the 10th, the Surface Transportation Board began to consider whether they would allow for an electrified high-speed line to be built between Palmdale and Victorville, California, connecting the future California High-Speed Rail and Brightline West. This proposed connector would be operated by Brightline West and would be the connection between Phase 1 of Brightline West and the Bakersfield to Los Angeles section of California High-Speed Rail. The board is accepting comments on this line until January 10th, and they will reply to said comments on February 8th. On the same day, the San Diego Association of Governments approved a 30-year, $160 billion regional transportation plan for San Diego County and its surrounding areas. Included in this plan is a lot of stuff pertaining to roadways and bike lanes, but also San Diego County plans to up coaster commuter rail service to every 5 minutes all day, to build a new central mobility hub in San Diego, a direct transit connection to San Diego's airport, a whole new light rail line, and a tunnel bypassing the current line that is basically slowly falling off a cliff in Del Mar, all by 2050. They also plan to make all transit in the area free for all by 2031. As great as all this stuff sounds, it's currently unclear where all this money will come from, and that's leaving many San Diego residents confused, but as a rail fan, this all sounds pretty good. In the early morning hours of the 12th, NS Train 20W was on its way to Pittsburgh when a rock slide caused the train to derail, turning both locomotives onto their sides. Luckily, all crew members escaped with only minor injuries, but the same could not be said for the train. I usually don't mention derailments on here, mostly because they happen all the time, and also I try to keep it positive on this show, But this derailment was the only thing I saw on my Facebook feed for almost a day, as the lead unit just so happened to be NS 8099, the Southern Heritage Unit. Pictures surfaced of this unit on its side, and many people suspect the 8099 may be scrapped after this, but as of now, NS hasn't made a comment as to what will happen to it. On the 13th, Florida commuter rail TriRail released some information about their plans to share Florida East Coast and Brightline's line between Miami and West Palm Beach, utilizing Brightline's new MiamiCentral station. Unfortunately, this already delayed project hit yet another roadblock when engineers discovered that the platforms at MiamiCentral were too big to fit TriRail's trains, which have protruding steps on the sides. Additionally, TriRail trains were thought to be too heavy for the viaduct preceding MiamiCentral. Some options for how to fix this issue would either be to modify the platform at MiamiCentral to fit TriRail trains, to modify the TriRail trains to fit the platform at MiamiCentral, or perhaps to build a gauntlet track at MiamiCentral that can move TriRail trains a few inches further away from the platform, allowing for both types of trains to easily fit into the station. Later in the month, Brightline replied to TriRail's complaints, saying that the viaduct could handle the weight of the TriRail trains, and the best option will be to modify the TriRail trains to fit into the station. So I suppose that's all that needs to be done. We'll see if TriRail complies, but if they don't, it'll be just another issue delaying this project. On the 14th, Amtrak and the MTA reached an agreement on their Penn Station Access project, which will connect Metro North to Penn Station via Amtrak's Hell Gate line. This project will cost a total of $2.87 billion. Amtrak will contribute $500 million to the project, while Metro North will contribute $432 million to help repair Amtrak's tunnels leading into Penn Station, while also paying for the proposed stations in the Bronx. This project is planned to be completed by 2025. Just a few days later, on the 16th, the MTA awarded a joint contract between Hallmar International and Railworks to design and build the infrastructure needed for this project, such as stations and tunnel improvements. Additionally, the Illinois Department of Transportation made a post on Facebook announcing that their recently acquired Siemens Venture trains would begin their final testing phase on Amtrak Midwest routes. Beginning on the 14th, Lincoln Service Trains 303 and 306 had a single Venture car in addition to the regular Am Fleets and Horizons. Amtrak Midwest plans to have all Venture cars in full service on all routes that previously used Horizons and Am Fleets in the first quarter of 2022, and supposedly some SC44-based cab cars will be delivered sometime in 2022 as well, but that's only speculation. Although it was confirmed that cab cars will additionally be used on the Hiawatha, the date of delivery of these cars is unknown at this time. I'm currently working with someone at Siemens Mobility to find this out. Finally, on that same day, CalTrain released photos of ex-Amtrak AEM-7 number 908 painted in a new red and white CalTrain paint scheme. This unit was purchased a few years ago to test the future catenary wires for CalTrain's electrification. CalTrain says this AEM-7 will soon be used to make sure the wires work, and by the summer of 2022 the line should be fully electrified, allowing for CalTrain to run this AEM-7 all the way between San Francisco and San Jose. Unfortunately, this AEM-7 will likely never see revenue service, but in the future it may be used for work trains along the line. In addition to announcing how the project should be electrified by this summer, CalTrain also announced that the project, despite going over budget, hasn't been delayed much, still being projected to be completed by 2024 once all Stadler-Kiss train sets are delivered. Hot on the heels of Amtrak revealing ACS-64 number 662 in its 50th anniversary wrap, photos leaked of Amtrak P42 DC number 203 wearing a new blue and yellow Operation Lifesaver paint scheme. This new OLS unit celebrates the Foundation's 50th anniversary, which will be in 2022. Many rail fans speculate that 203 will be on some sort of Operation Lifesaver 50th anniversary train that'll go on tour in 2022, but as of now, no details about that have been revealed. On the 21st, the state of Connecticut approved $839 million of funding to upgrade transit in the state. Among many improvements was a $280 million order with Siemens Mobility for 22 dual-mode charger locomotives capable of using diesel power and overhead and third rail electricity. These locomotives will initially replace P32 ACDMs and BL20GH locomotives used on the Metro North branch lines in the state, but eventually they will be used on the CT-Rail Hartford line and a new express service to New York City. Finally, the last bit of notable news from 2022 was that Norfolk Southern acquired 10 EMD SD70 ACE locomotives. This group of 10 locomotives will be delivered in early 2022, joining the 50 that NS bought a few years ago. These 10 were previously used as demonstrator units, and once repainted they will be in service on Norfolk Southern as NS 1225 through 1234. And there you go, now it's 2022, and with multiple railroad mergers set to take place, and new equipment coming to many railroads, It's bound to be yet another interesting year for train news. So with that, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in a month for the first episode of 2022.